The 1991 Topps baseball cards issue was a product of its time and of much earlier times. In 1990, Topps had issued a set of comic book bordered cards that marched alongside the garish red of Donruss and the general ickiness of the crappy Fleer set as the three traditional companies made a beeline away from Upper Deck. Who needed classic lines and clear, crisp photos when you had freaking design, man? Collectors, that's who. Apparently, at least, as we were unwilling or simply unable to absorb the oceans of products on the market, even as we continued to slobber over the gorgeous Upper Deck offerings in their second year, Topps at least took heed. As the 40th anniversary of their first set, 1951 Redbacks and Bluebacks, dawned, Topps unveiled a classy, understated base set in the spring of 1991. Sensing they had a good thing going, TCG issued a few extras and parallels that stood the test of time and hobby fluctuations better than the original. So which of the 1991 Topps baseball cards are the most valuable? Well, it depends on where you're standing and what you're holding. Let's start at the beginning and work our way through the rest. 1991 Topps base set. The 1991 Topps set featured a thin team-colored border inside a traditional thick white border. Goodbye, comic pixels. A team logo adorned the lower right-hand corner, and player information sat inside an understated bar beneath his picture. Tucked into the upper left-hand corner was a Topps 40 Years of Baseball logo. The dominant design element was the player photo, big and clear for the most part. Sound familiar? It probably does if you've ever seen an Upper Deck card. They sort of changed how we saw desirable cards at the time. It also sounds familiar if you're a fan of the classic sets from the hobby's history: 1953 Bowman, 1957 Topps, 1967 Topps. The problem in terms of value for 1991 Topps sets is that the cards are everywhere, and they still are. Check out eBay and you'll find complete sets for $10 or less, often under $5. In terms of singles, the Chipper Jones #1 draft pick rookie card, number 333, leads the way, with the PSA Sports Market Report, or SMR, citing prices at $3, $8, and $22 in PSA 8 through 10, respectively. In practice, you can probably find even PSA gems for less than these prices on eBay or at shows. Other superstars like Nolan Ryan, Ken Griffey Jr., Cal Ripken, Frank Thomas, and Greg Maddux can be yours for peanuts or less most of the time. 1991 Topps traded. Topps issued their typical 132 cards of traded players and rookie cards in the fall of 1991. These things were always a hit or miss in terms of player selection, depending on who was moving around. You can count 1991 solidly in the hit column thanks to the first Topps cards of two future Hall of Famers, the Houston Astros first baseman Jeff Bagwell and Texas Rangers catcher Ivan Rodriguez. Still, there were and are plenty of these dudes available, which dampens their value, often to less than $20 in PSA 10 copies and south from there. 1991 Topps Tiffany. From 1984 through 1991, Topps gave collectors what they wanted. Sort of. Back then, we were always clamoring for limited print runs, premium white cardstock, and clear photography. While Topps didn't do anything to move away from their traditional mushy brown cardboard in base sets until 1992, we could always count on the Tiffany. Topps Tiffany gave us all those things we wanted, in complete set form that we could buy at a premium. In addition, the sets featured super glossy finishes on card fronts. Through 1989, when they produced 25,000 Tiffany sets, Topps actually released print run numbers publicly. That wasn't the case in 1990 and 1991, but you can get some idea of the relative print runs based on the PSA population report. For 1991, PSA has graded about 16,000 base cards and about one-third that number of their Tiffany counterparts. The most valuable glossies are pretty much who you would expect: Chipper, Nolan, Maddux, Ripken, Griffey, the Big Hurt, etc. And in the rookie cards, that is Bagwell and Pudge again too, in traded form. You can expect to pay $10 or more for stars in PSA 8, all the way up to $1,000 or more for the Tiffany Chipper rookie card. 1991 Topps Desert Shield. The 1991 Topps set debuted just as America was engaging in the first Gulf War. To honor our troops and maybe give them a tiny taste of home, Topps produced a parallel of their base set, designated as Topps Desert Shield. The cards are exactly the same as the normal Topps card, except for the presence of a gold foil desert emblem stamped on card fronts. Exact print runs of Desert Shield baseball cards aren't known, but standard estimates put the total number of sets at between 6,500 and 7,000. That's still quite a few by today's standards, but it's still tiny when you consider the typical flood of each issue from the early 1990s. Couple that with wartime conditions under which most of these cards first saw the light of day, and that they had to make the long trip home to find their way into American collections, and it's little wonder that these cards are hard to come by in top condition. While PSA has graded close to 60,000 Desert Shield cards, just about 12,000 check in at PSA 10. That might seem like a lot until you consider that collectors aren't too likely to submit new cards unless they think they're in top shape. The relative scarcity of pristine Desert Shield cards has led to some big prices on the secondary market, including PSA 10 Chipper Jones rookie cards that sold on eBay for north of $15,000 and $13,000 in May and June of 2019, respectively. A Griffey 10 that brought in about 10 grand in May of 2019. High-grade partial set of 339 cards that hauled in nearly $3,900 in May of 2019. A Nolan Ryan record breaker number 6 that sold for more than $1,300 in late May of 2019. It's commonplace to find PSA 9 Chipper Jones rookie cards selling for well over $1,000 on eBay, and PSA 10s of most of the era superstars approach that level as well. Because of the set's high profile among other cards from the 1990s, there have been plenty of counterfeits to hit the market over the years. That fact probably helps drive the graded card market too, as having a PSA or BGS stamp gives you at least some assurances you have the real thing. Be careful if you pursue these babies though, and watch out for the telltale signs like foiled shields that are bigger and brighter than others when compared side by side. The real ones are generally the smaller ones. Pointy shield bottoms on the Desert Shield emblem, the real ones are more rounded. Blobby, non-distinct coconuts, they're clear on the real copies. Palm leaves that touch shield borders, real ones don't. Obscured stars on the flag, more like simple points on some fakes. Like our video? Then like our videos and subscribe to our channel. waxpackgods.com